Hey, what's up to the listeners of the Productive Pastor podcast? My name is Mike Neglia, and I get to be part of a ministry called the Expositors Collective. We have a podcast that comes out every Tuesday, which is focused on helping preachers grow in your personal study and public proclamation of God's Word. But our main emphasis is our in-person training events, and we have two of them coming up. The first one is August 11th and 12th in Temecula, California, which is in Riverside in Southern California, and then also October 27th and 28th in Indianapolis, Indiana. At these events, young and new or even older and more experienced preachers will be introduced to all of the steps that's necessary in constructing a Christ-centered, expositional sermon, how to prepare it well and deliver it with clarity and authority. If you want to grow in that area, or if you have an intern, an up-and-coming young adult in your church that you want to send, well, please visit expositorscollective.com, and there's information and registration details. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll let you get back to the episode of the Productive Pastor podcast.
Productive Pastor 66. It's all about the hacks. Friends, y'all got to hear already from my boys over at the Expositors Collective about some of their events they have coming up and what's going on with that. You know, the Expositors Collective is not a new thing to us here at Productive Pastor. We talked about them before, but I got an email from Mike, who's over Expositors Collective, saying, hey, would you want to do a swap with us? Is that the sort of thing you'd be down for? And I was like, yeah, bring it on, because we love to talk about preaching and all that sorts of stuff. So I hope you heard that. If you're in the neck of that woods and you can make that trip, man, go over there. Tell me what it's like. I want to go. I've always want to go. Mike, when you're listening, I want to go to one of your events. You need to do it on the Gulf Coast, my friend. But this episode's a little different. And what's so funny is I remember having a conversation with Mike way back about a year ago when things were kicking back off again. And he told me, he said, Chad, I love the direction that Productive Pastor is going with this conversation about thoughtful productivity. But man, I still miss the hacks a little bit. And we got a good laugh out of that. And I find it odd that have Mike Neglia and the Expositors Collective folks jumping on to make that kind of pre-run ad share that we're doing. But for this to be the hacks episode. So Mike, a fist bump over the internet. This is how it all trotted out. Let's call it just a move of the Holy Spirit. But we're here with the hacks episode of Productive Pastor. Excited to talk about this. I'm going to talk on the back end of this a little bit about the Trello course, some stuff that's going on. So just hold on to your britches. We'll get to that towards the end of the episode. But let's talk about some ministry hacks that I'm learning that I still swear by. So let's just go straight into it. So here's the thing. Hacks will not make you more productive. If your productivity is trash and you're depending on hacks, it's just going to get trashier. But if you have an understanding of productivity and realizing there are certain things that you need to do that just allow you to get a little bit more margin, carve out a little bit more time to let your focus be more directed, that sort of thing, that's the space where I feel like the hacks come into play. Also, if you struggle with productivity in sort of a way, or maybe you have ADHD or ADD, I coach a lot of pastors that, want to do productivity coaching because of that. Hacks sometimes then can find a way to trick you or catapult you into greater productivity. But if all you're doing is hack chasing, you're going to get really tired because you'll never catch the tail. But if you're working towards healthy and mindful productivity, you'll start to discover some hacks that allow you to get even more done. Think back to the Fast and Furious movies about the folks who know how to use nitrous oxide and the folks who don't know how to use nitrous oxide. This is us using nitrous in sparing ways. So the first hack that I have to share that I use constantly is this. It's the Pomodoro method. I love the Pomodoro method. Some folks call it like tomato timer productivity, that sort of thing. But in short, what it is, it's you work in focused bursts for 25 minutes or 45 minutes, and then you take a 5-minute break, or in the 45-minute, you take a 15-minute break, and you set those up as focused times. You remove distractions, you turn off the phone, you don't get on Twitter, you just do that, and then you give yourself during that break, you get a true break. You get to go up and do whatever you want to do for those 5 minutes. I love to work with Pomodoro, and when I'm in a season where I'm having to be intensely focused, I will dive into Pomodoro even more. Sometimes what I'll do is when I'm setting up my day sheet for the day or my daily plan, or if I'm looking into a week where I need to get a lot of deep work done, what I do is I set the goal to say, hey, I'm going to give myself 3 Pomodoro cycles today of focused work. I'm going to give myself 4 Pomodoro cycles. Or say, you know what, this project's going to take like 7 cycles, and so let me make sure I schedule out 7 cycles of Pomodoro across my week. And here's another hack side of that is there's a lot of great YouTube videos that have like cool ambient or lo-fi music, that sort of a thing, that have the timers built into them. So a lot of times I won't set up a thing on my phone because I need to stay away from my phone when I'm doing Pomodoro. I'll go to one of those YouTube videos, those playlists, or some artists or channels that do those really well that I love. Or there's also like a website called Tomato Timer. And I'll go and I'll get that, and that will set up this stuff for me. But, the first hack that I want to give you is the Pomodoro method. Second hack is I learned this from Justin Wise originally, but it's to do your to-do list on a 3x3 Post-it and write it with a Sharpie. And the whole thing was, you can only typically fit 3 or 4 tasks onto that sticky, and that's your whole to-do list for the day. It's about not cramming too much stuff on there. And while I don't do the Post-it and the Sharpie for my to-do list anymore, I am highly, highly aware of not having more than 3 focused tasks for the day. If I hit my 3, I know I'm making good headway on stuff. You might be saying, Chad, you're only getting 3 things done a day. No, I'm not getting more. I've got coaching calls. I might have a couple of Pomodoro blocks to work on my sermon each day, but I don't let myself have more than like 3 objective, drilled down tasks to take care of. Now, some of you might be saying that sounds like not nearly enough stuff as well. But what I found out is, if you get really good at focusing on those 3 things, and you do that day after day after day after day, you will find a lot more traction than having a never-ending to-do list that you're not thinking about strategically. So that's my second hack, is the 3-thing list. Third hack, and this is a little bit of an advertisement, I'm going to talk more about it on the back end, but it's my Trello weekly dashboard. I get this thing, I do this every single Sunday night. I put it together. It's not a calendar, but it's my work plan for the week. And I've found ways to keep projects inside of it, to move projects forward in it. I can juggle so much. And now I like having irons in the fire, but I'm able to get so much more done because of this weekly dashboard, because it has my focuses and my priorities and my tasks and all that project management stuff and everything else in my contact lists. All the things are sitting right there in front of me, and it's the first thing I look at as I start work that day. And I never have to ask myself the question, what do I need to be doing next? Because I did the work, it's in the dashboard, and it's flexible and easy to use. That's going to be Module 4 of the Trello course, is helping you understand how to create a weekly dashboard. I'll talk about it more at the end of the episode, but the Trello weekly dashboard is my third hack. Now, my fourth hack, this is going to be a fourth and fifth, and they kind of go in together, and they do this. So the fourth one is this. It's Readwise. I was talking about in Productive Pastor Community today. I use it to put tweets into. I use the Air Podcast app, and it will drop podcast quotes into there. I use the app so I can take pictures of quotes from paper books I'm reading. I have it linked to Instapaper for articles and PDFs. And then I also have it linked to my Kindle, so any of my book highlights. And it takes everything. It lets me tag them. It lets me attach notes to them. And then it drops it all into the productivity software of your choice. If you're going to use Evernote, if you're going to use Notion, if you're going to use Rome Research, All those options have, typically the big ones have a Readwise import, so you can then search them and you can find the stuff. Readwise helps me pull stuff up for sermons, for other content I'm writing, for courses, for everything. It makes my life so much easier. In ministry, we're in a content job, and it's just like a content management system, so you're not wasting the time that you're reading and thinking. And what I love about it is, like, if you've been on Kindle, if you've ever used Kindle, if you're one of those folks that I'm a little bit younger than me, that went to seminary when a lot of the textbooks and the books we read in seminary were on Kindle, the second you sign up for it, it pulls all of your highlights from your history, not just what you're reading from the moment you sign up and forward. So Readwise is a heck of a hack. Number 5 is another reading hack, but it's this. If you mark up paper books, go to Amazon. I'll have a link in the show notes. I buy these things. They're dirt cheap, and they're just little colored book flags. Come up with a color code system. So when you're reading a book and you want to mark something up, you can drop in, hey, I know that green tags mean this is something that would be great for a sermon. I'm going to pop that tag in there. Or for me, a blue tag means this is a big idea for this chapter, for this book. I'm going to pop that in there. My color code system means something. And so when I'm done reading a book, and a few days after I read the book, I begin flipping through my color codes, and I can make notes. I can drop them into stuff. I can go into Readwise, all those sorts of things. But if you look at my books and all the book flags, I take pictures of stuff. You've seen it before on Instagram if you follow me. I have a color code system for my reading, so I'm not wasting my reading. People on vacation, my family were making fun of me because I went to the beach with a couple of books and a bag and some of my little book tags and some Post-it notes and a pen, and I'm reading a book about neuroplasticity on the beach. But you know what? I've gotten some great stuff out of that book already. And so, having a reading system is a little bit of a hack. 5th hack, or 6th hack, this is 6th hack. The Amazon instant deliveries. What are the things you just need to keep in stock? I have my little book flags delivered every 6 months, so I always have tons of them, so I can be very indiscriminate with my use of them, because I know I'm getting another giant bag of like 500 of them. Not 500, probably 100. Every 6 months. I have a whiteboard cleaner that comes every 3 months. So every 3 months, I'm done with my big bottle of whiteboard cleaner. I know another bottle is coming in. I've had notebooks, I've had pens, any of the office type stuff, or any just some of the home stuff that you use a lot. Set up an Amazon instant delivery. That way you're not thinking about it. It's not taking space up in your head, but you're also not running out of something and realizing, oh, wow, I need more of those things, but I can't go to the store, or I'm going to be frustrated to wait a few days to get it. Just have it set up on an instant delivery. It is beautiful. Okay, 7th hack, another reading hack is this. Have a short shelf. Now my mom got this for me for Christmas. It's a giant library cart on wheels, like the kind you see of people reshelving books. I love mine. It's a little obnoxious, but a short shelf is something I learned about in seminary. These are the books that you are using frequently. They're the books that you go to constantly as in your sermon preparation, or these might be the resources that you're using for a moment in time as you're reading a project or interested in an idea, that sort of a thing. And so you stick that stuff on there, but you also have it close to your desk. So these things that you're using now are right there in front of you. And it's not about saving time to get up and not go to your big bookshelf or whatnot, but it's just about the focus that you have, knowing these things are right there. And it makes it easier to redeem the time if you do have 15 or 20 minutes. Hey, you know what? I'm going to keep on kind of plodding away at this book I'm reading and taking notes through it for a sermon series. It's coming up in 6 months. And when the book is, 3 feet away from you, it's easy to do that. And that sounds like a little bit of context switching, but there's also, you're redeeming the time a little bit. And the last hack is this, and I love it. It's a service called Calendly, and it's how you can schedule folks for whatever you need to schedule folks for meetings, for conversations, that kind of stuff. But what I love is you can set up your availability in it beforehand. So it's not just sending somebody a link and they just pick a time and you have to work it into your schedule. Calendly links into your schedule, but then you also set up the availability that you have for it. And then when someone wants to have a talk or have a conversation, this sort of thing, I feel guilty because I want to prioritize people. But so many times I hate the back and forth of, can you do this, or can you do this, or can you do this, or can you do this? Instead, I just send them my Calendly link, and I actually have 5 or 6 different links that are inside of there for different things. I've got a link for folks from church. I've got a link for pastors here in Louisiana that I work with as the congregational strategist. I've got a link I use for regular recurring coaching sessions. I got a link for people who want to inquire to talk about coaching. I got a couple other links that are set up for that. And I have them set, like, I will take this many of these conversations a day or a week, and make sure you leave, this amount of time before. I've got pastor friends that have their Calendly link in their email signature series. And so it's not about keeping your calendar more closed off. It's actually making your calendar more open. And I bring this up for this. If you are in a situation where you're beginning to need administrative help in your calendar, and you're realizing that that might be something you want to do, but you don't have the resources for administrative assistant, or maybe you have a secretary or administrative assistant, but like for some reason you don't want to like put them in your calendar, it might be too complicated or something like this. Calendly is a great way to begin, gaining the benefit of that without too much additional effort. And also in a local church setting, this is a really, really helpful thing. Because it helps folks know, hey, he's really, really accessible. Or she's really, really accessible. If I want to get with him, they're going to send me a link, and it's going to pop it in. It's going to show up in their schedule, and there's no back and forth. I love it. It sounds kind of weird as a tool to use, but what I have found out for a person who struggles scheduling like this, because I don't like the physical act of going back and forth, this allows me to be much more available to the people that I need to be available to. I started using this just to schedule coaching. Now I use it to schedule almost every single thing in my life. I've got a line there for friends around town who want to grab a lunch. I'll say, hey, here's when I'm open. Pick what works for you, and it'll automatically drop it in my calendar, and I'll see you there for lunch. And so, super easy tool. I love it. So there's the hacks episode number 1. There'll probably be more of these down the line. Because we all have these hacks, but remember, a hack won't help your productivity not be trash. Hacks help your productivity become healthy. I told you I'd talk more about the Trello course coming up at the end of the episode. I'm almost finished with the video of that, hoping to have that out another couple of weeks. It's going to be a fantastic resource for folks that are wanting to find a better solution to personal ministry management and how to juggle just this complicated life called ministry. Stoked to get that resource out to y'all. So thanks for tuning back in the podcast. Come hang out on the private Facebook group, the Productivity Party. Would love to see you there. Chad Brooks will be back in the next episode.